Joined now by the great Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com. Be a subscriber and follow along his great content on the Colts, the Pacers, Hoosiers, the Boilers, Fever. Covers everything like we do. And his latest, well, first of all, before we jump to Indiana, the Colts, gigantic win over the Titans last week. That was, you couldn't get the win over Jacksonville. Lost to Houston already. So this was just imperative, and they get it. And they have another game coming up with Houston. But so as bad as things have looked, they still haven't screwed the pooch totally yet.
No, but, that may be coming because the schedule gets really tough. The schedule gets really tough. They got games against Baltimore, against Buffalo, the Jets. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I think 3 of their next 4 are on the road, and they're tough games. So this was a point that they had to win that Tennessee game just to kind of stay in touch with Houston, who's 5-1 and in first place in the AFC South, and give themselves an opportunity. Now, we'll talk again in a month, and we'll see where they are, because I think they're headed for some tough times here with the schedule.
And this has to be Chris Ballard's last year, one would think.
You would think, wouldn't you? But I don't know that it is. Especially if AR can't stay healthy and he's in and out of the lineup. I think that would give Jim Irsay all the reason he needs to say, well, we're developing AR, and Ballard has put a good team around him. I think it should be his last season if they don't get to the playoffs. But
I think you and everybody except for Jim Irsay.
I think Jim Irsay is a lone rider on this one.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. Of course, a gigantic weekend on the Indiana campus, as it is homecoming, first of all, which that always I never went to a single homecoming parade when I was in college.
Me either.
I didn't even know. I don't know that I knew that there was a homecoming parade, to be honest with you. But it's a big weekend. They've really smart is what they've done to combine Hoosier hysteria with this. You've got baseball playing their fall World Series. Soccer has a game against Michigan State, I believe, Friday night at 7. So a lot going on. Hoosier hysteria kicks it off. And it will be a huge audience, because then there's a big expectations for the basketball program. You won't get to see much other than some pomp and circumstance type stuff. But the big show is Saturday at noon, when Nebraska comes in to take on this 16th ranked Indiana football team that is 6-0. And some people are still doubting. A lot of people they're wanting to, like yourself, your latest article in bobkravitz.com. I want to believe IU football is for real. Truly, I do. But something is
holding me back. And I think I still have football PTSD from 1978. And I talked with Don Fisher about this the other day. I went down to Bloomington on the way back from Nashville, and I saw Don, and I mentioned the 78 game, and he just shook his head. That they had a really good team that year, or they were on their way to being a pretty good team. They had lost at ranked LSU by a touchdown. Then they went out to Washington and beat Warren Moon and ranked Washington Huskies, and came back, and they had a regional telecast, which back in those days was like a big deal. Now every game is streamed or shown on TV somewhere. So the game was on regional TV on ABC, and it was 28-0 like in the first 10 minutes. And they lost 69-17. And I was a fan back then. I was out in the stands without my shirt on in the rain and cold like an idiot.
Well, that's a thought that I did not need into my head.
Well, I used to be in decent shape, but not anymore. But anyway, that's another story. And I think it ruined me. It traumatized me. So look, they're having a nice season. I hope it keeps going, but I ain't gonna buy into it until they beat somebody really good. And Nebraska's good. Um, I don't know if that's gonna put me over the top. It kind of depends on how the game goes.
Yeah, I have, for whatever reason, been able to just completely, I've been around and covered IU football for
Right.
30 plus years as well. Mallory era, I did not, the era that you're talking about was right before me, but I know about all of the, um, actually their problem started in the late 60s when they had the walkout, I believe.
Right.
I don't
Right.
think they were ever the same since then.
They're never the same.
And but Indiana never tried to be. And because that coincided exactly timing wise with the arrival of Bob Knight and the explosion of Indiana basketball, they didn't care, which that's a whole nother story. But I have been able to, none of that stuff has mattered to me in my thinking. And that's why I was on the 6-0 path from the
Oh, I
very
know you
start.
are. I know you
No,
are.
no, I'm just saying why, because
Yeah.
I could look at it, but also being around this team, being around this staff, and you could just tell this is something different, man. Now, I'm not going to say I expected us to be talking about Indiana in the regard of making it to this crazy talk, and it's absolutely crazy of Indiana making the
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we.
the fact that we're having this conversation or about
It's
to,
amazing.
huh?
It's amazing.
It is crazy. First of all, I don't want to mess up on the fact, and before I get distracted though, but you told us in the break you were there that day for that.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it was wild because I'll tell the story in a shorter manner, but basically, after he was done, we were walking out of the press room, and Jim taps me on the shoulder and says, "You got a minute?" I was like, "Oh shit, what did I do now?" And so we walked into a little side room, and he said, "Now you tell me straight. Did I say anything that wasn't appropriate? Did I say anything that wasn't totally accurate?" I'm like, "No, you're accurate, but you're funny too." It's like I knew he was going to become a meme. I mean, playoffs. That's just epic.
yeah, it is. It's one of the greats of all time. So we get. I mean, that's something that will be played forever. I mean,
Oh
how
yeah.
long ago was that? 30 years?
That would have been let's see, I probably around 2003, 2002, somewhere in there. So 20 some odd years ago, and it
But
will last forever.
oh man, it's one of the greats. But getting back to yeah, so I've taken all of that past stuff out,
Right.
and just been able to look, all right, this is what Kurt Signetti has done. Now his boldness when he got here, it I think it set all of us, it set me back on my heels a little bit, because like you're like, oh come on man, don't come in here
Right.
like
Yeah.
that, that's not gonna, now you're guaranteed to flop. And nope, nope, not the case. I mean, this is somebody who has supreme confidence in what they are doing and
Yeah,
how they've done
the
it.
process.
It is, and he's right.
Yeah.
I
See,
mean,
my question coming in was, look, this dude has had success at Elon and James Madison, but now he's playing with the big boys. Can he have success with the big boys? And so far, the answer is absolutely, absolutely yes. And that's the thing. It's not like, what was it last year? They just barely beat Akron or something, um, or 2 years ago, whatever it was. Um, they're beating the hell out of people. I mean, they're just smoking everybody. I think, whatever the spread is, they're beating it every week. I believe. I don't look very closely, but I believe that's true.
They have.
So that's not the Indiana we've come to know and love. And this is quite a lot of fun. And I agree with you. I think they're going to put a pretty good beat down on Nebraska this weekend. And
Yeah.
I think this team will be able to handle the success that they've been having, which is not the case.
They've handled it thus far, and Indiana, before you joined us, I talked about getting a ton of attention now. Kurt Signetti is everywhere. Was on Pat McAfee yesterday. He's everywhere. And Indiana could not afford to pay for all that publicity that Indiana is getting.
Right.
That is immeasurable, first of all. It will recruiting. My first thought is recruiting, how well that is going to play with recruits. Now, because they still want to win at the end of the day. Everybody wants paid, but they still want to win. And they still want to play in an offense like Indiana's. It's pretty wide open, and where multiple guys are a part of what's going on. It's not one receiver and it's not one running back. It's a group. So that's just going to be very inviting. The defense is going to be very inviting, and the future looks bright until it's not, until if coaches get poached or something like that. But you just
that's the thing about Signetti. I don't. Somebody was saying, well, we better sign him to a long-term deal. I'm like, first of all, he is signed to a long-term deal, but he's 60, what, 2?
3.
3. Okay, he's my age, and I think he's a lifer at Indiana. If he continues to have the sort of success he's had, I don't see him getting poached.
No, I've talked about this, and the reason why I agree with you is because teams that have been mentioned like Florida and Auburn and all those places, tradition, but guess what? Indiana does not have tradition, but he is making the tradition.
Right.
He is doing what no one else could do, and they have all tried. Whether it's Sam White, Jerry DiNardo, Cam Cameron, all of these names that you would have thought that, oh yeah, okay, that'll work. No, not even close.
No, Bill Mallory came as close as anybody.
Right, and that was still in the other era of what we call straight up football, I guess, when you could compete with Ohio State.
We should make sure to give the IU administration credit for putting the money finally into procuring talent. Indiana, I mean, say what you will about Tom Allen, but he was not whining when he said that, Indiana had not made the financial commitment in the NIL era. And I think they have now, and they've got a coach and a coaching staff that knows how to use those funds well, and have brought in a really good team.
Yep. We've got to take a break. I don't know if you have time for another segment or not.
Actually, I got to run this morning. I'm so
let you go. We'll appreciate you, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
I'll be there, babe.
All right, brother. Looking forward to it. The great Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com. Make sure you're a subscriber and taking in that great content every day.